Welcome to our Rotherham SENDIAS video on requesting an Education, Health and Care Needs Assessment. Before looking at this video, consider the support implemented by the school or the setting and take a look at our video on SEND support in mainstream schools. Before going into detail about a request for an EHC Needs Assessment, it's important to know that the information within this video is from one of three places. First of all, there's the SEND Code of Practice 0-25 statutory guidance, the SEND regulations and the Children and Families Act. It's also important to know that SEN provision can be provided in two different ways. The first is by an early years provider or a school or a post-16 setting arranging the special educational provision from within its own resources. That's via SEN support and the graduated approach, and you may want to take a look at our video around SEN support and the graduated approach in mainstream schools. The second way is by SEN provision being specified in an EHC plan, in which case there's a duty on the local authority to secure the SEN provision for that child. This video will focus on EHC requests. So what is an Education, Health and Care Needs Assessment? The definition of an EHC Needs Assessment is an assessment of the educational, health care and social care needs of a child or young person. It's for the local authority to carry out. However, there are also requirements for services and settings to comply when the local authority requests information from them. An assessment is a requirement to obtain in an EHC plan. The following people can specifically request an EHC needs assessment of the local authority, and that's a child's parent or the young person themselves who is above the age of 16 to 25. However, it's worth noting that if they lack the mental capacity to make the request themselves, their parent or another representative on their behalf can do that. A person acting on behalf of the school or the post-16 setting can also make the request for an assessment. However, in addition to these three people, anyone else can bring a child or young person who has or may have special educational needs to the attention of the local authority, particularly where they think an EHC needs assessment may be necessary. If you're considering making a request for an EHC needs assessment of the local authority, there are a few things we'd ask you to consider first. First of all, does your child or young person have special educational needs or a disability? Please be aware that this may be different to medical or health needs, and you might want to consider the information on our SEND Support in Mainstream Schools video, which details what SEND is. Is there any evidence to show your child has or may have special educational needs or a disability and may need SEND provision provided by an EHC plan? This is an evidence-based process, and if there is no evidence to support the legal test for assessment, then the local authority may be in a position to refuse to request the assessment at this time. Has the school or setting been in a position to use their best endeavours to meet a child or young person's needs by making use of their graduated response? You can find out more about the graduated response in Chapter 6 of the SEND Code of Practice and on our video on SEND support in mainstream schools. The graduated response is where you will find a lot of the evidence for the needs for an EHC needs assessment. So if you feel now is the appropriate time to ask for an EHC needs assessment, you could send a letter to the EHC team in Rotherham. They're based in Kinworth Place, Kinworth Road, Rotherham, S61 1HE. Or you could send an email to Rotherham EHC team at assent@rotherham.gov.uk. You would need to include your child's name and date of birth. It would be helpful to say which school or setting they attend. And it would be helpful to say why you feel an EHC needs assessment is needed. Outline their special educational needs or disabilities and also provide any evidence such as copies of letters or reports. Please don't submit your only copy. Mention the support that's been in place so far and who else has offered support, and provide any evidence such as copies of letters or reports and names and contact details of other services who might have been involved at this time. Make sure your letter or email is dated and that it has your contact details on too, including an email address, phone number and address. Within Rotherham, we also have the EHC Hub. This is where you can also make a request for an EHC needs assessment. You can find the EHC Hub on www.rotherhamsendlocaloffer.org.uk and follow the path of clicking on the Education button and the support in education, which will bring you onto this page here. You'll see on the left-hand side there's a number 9 which says the Rotherham Education Healthcare EHC Hub. Click on that link and then you can also access the EHC Hub through the blue link that's in the main part of the page. All EHC requests are inputted onto the EHC Hub, so even if you don't request the assessment by this method, the process will be placed on the hub so you have full access to the information for you to add to, and you're also able to view the information that others put on here too, such as schools and services. The outcome of the EHC assessment will also be published on the hub, including any letters the local authority write to inform you of your rights following the outcomes. If an EHC plan is granted at the end of this process, this too will be placed on the EHC Hub for you to make comments on and have a look at. So it's really important that you gain access to the EHC Hub. If you experience any problems gaining access to the EHC Hub, or if you suddenly find you can't access the Hub anymore, you can please send an email to hubhelp@rotherham.gov.uk and you will receive some support from the EHC team to get back onto the Hub. As your email address is linked to the Hub, any updates should trigger an email too, so you know to log on to have a look to take a look at new information that's available for you. The EHC process from start to finish is a 20-week process. Deciding whether to make an assessment of special educational needs or not will take place within the first 6 weeks. So taking a closer look at the first 6-week part of this timetable. At week 1, where the assessment request has been submitted to the local authority, that triggers the time frame for the EHC process. A child's parent or the young person themselves must be notified as soon as practicable that the local authority are considering securing an EHC needs assessment. The local authority, when deciding to do an assessment or not, have to use a legal test. That legal test is that the local authority must secure an EHC needs assessment if, after having regard to all the evidence submitted, they're of the opinion that the child or young person has or may have special educational needs, and it may be necessary for a special educational provision to be made in accordance with an EHC plan. The latest the local authority can inform a parent or young person of the decision is by week 6. The outcome of this can either be a yes or a no. If the outcome is no, then reasons must be given along with the right of mediation and appeal. Families are usually notified of this outcome via the EHC Hub, and again you should receive an email to trigger to have a look at the Hub to have a look at the outcome. Within the first 6 weeks, the local authority must also notify the following people: the responsible commissioning body, the social services part of the local authority. If your child is still at school or in an early years setting, the head teacher or the person responsible for SEN. In relation to a young person at a post-16 setting, the principal of that setting. There are some exceptions to the first 6 weeks process, and that is if the child or young person has been assessed within the last 6 months or if she has an EHC plan already. The local authority also can make exceptions to the first 6 weeks if the child has been away from the school for a period of more than 4 weeks. So bear in mind things like 6-week holidays, as this would impact on this time frame. I hope this short video about how to request an EHC needs assessment has been helpful. You might also want to take a look at our frequently asked questions on EHC needs assessment on our YouTube channel. And you might also be interested in our videos on EHC needs assessment and draft EHC plans.